Hey, welcome to History 2110, Survey of American History. My name is Dr. Christopher Gleason. I'll be your instructor for this course. For this first introductory video, I wanted to introduce myself a little bit and then go over the syllabus so you'll know what to expect this semester. My name, which I mentioned before, is Dr. Christopher Gleason. I'm a lecturer here in the history department. Because this is an online course, we can't go around and everybody do the introductions as I normally would. So I'll just give you a little brief overview about myself. I obviously have a PhD in history, which I finished in 2019. Previously, before that, I studied at various places around the country. I'm an alumni of Georgia State twice over. I also ended up studying at Golden Gate Seminary in San Francisco and then Princeton, where I studied religion. I eventually came back here to Georgia, both to study and then eventually to join the faculty at Georgia State. In my free time, I can be found doing a bunch of stuff. I'm either on my motorcycle, driving around, taking pictures of stuff, doing photography, do a lot of photography. Lifetime skateboarder, if I'm not on my motorcycle, I'm probably on my skateboard or taking photos of people on skateboards jumping off stuff. Get over to California as much as I can to work with some companies out there, see some friends, do some things. So when I'm not teaching at GSU, I also work with a lot of nonprofits around the state to teach college credit-bearing courses in prisons. I work every Wednesday at the federal prison, the federal penitentiary over in Grant Park, right at the south of Grant Park there. So that's enough about me. I'm sure that you are interested primarily in what it takes to do well in this course. So let's jump into the syllabus for a second. I want to kind of walk through this so you'll know what to expect from me. You'll know what your assignments are. You'll know the dates where things are expected of you. So if you were to pull up your syllabus, everything is through iCollege here. If you found this video, then you have found iCollege, and so I'm hoping that we are familiar with that. If you have questions about iCollege, shoot me an email. I do want to just walk through the syllabus so we can understand the structure of the course, the structure of expectations. So this is History 2110, Survey of American History. If you can access this, you should be in the right place. So this is an asynchronous course. What it essentially means is we don't meet live ever in this course. Now that does not mean that you can just do the assignments whenever you want. There are due dates. We are going to go week by week through this, so you're actually not going to be able to access some of the weekly content until we move further in the course. This first week, you'll be able to see this week to complete it. By next week, you'll probably see week 2, potentially week 3, and then they will extend after that. Might be that you won't be able to access a week until we begin moving into it. So I just want to make sure that if you are clicking through the weeks and what to expect, just follow the syllabus and you will have access to it by the beginning of that week. Begin to move forward through the first, second, into the third weeks. I will probably go ahead and extend much of the content there. So there will be a chance to get ahead a little bit if you want to, if that's how you approach this course. I'm all right with that. But for the first 2 to 3 weeks, that will not be possible. I'll keep things updated as we begin to move forward, so there's no confusion about that. The email here, cgleason1@gsu.edu. It's very important that if we communicate, when we communicate, that we communicate through our GSU official email. So whatever your name is at student dot, whatever your official GSU email is, to my cgleason1@gsu.edu email. There is a messaging system built into iCollege. I would ask that you do not use that. I will probably check it periodically to make sure that something doesn't get missed, but I do not check that like I would my email. If you want to communicate with me, the way to communicate with students to professors should be through email, so please do not use the messaging system within iCollege. Use the email. Office hours, they're virtual by appointment, so I'm going to be real flexible with that. I understand that we all have different time commitments and frames, and so if you want to communicate with me, if you want to do a WebEx is probably the way we'll do it, right? If we want to talk live in person, then you just email me and we'll set that up. There's no physical office hours for you to come by because this is a online course in the summer, so I'm not on the campus hardly at all. If we do need to meet in person for any reason, I will obviously accommodate that. So my physical office location is 25 Park Place, 20th floor in room 2005 on the 20th floor. But I don't think that will be necessary. Okay, what is this course? On the syllabus, you'll see this course description. And essentially what this says is this is a thematic survey of United States history. The method is to set the founding ideal of equality proclaimed in the Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal. We're probably familiar with that language. We want to set that alongside the larger experience of American people leading up to the Declaration of Independence and ever since. We're going to do things in order as we begin to walk through even before the founding documents, through the founding of the United States, and all the way towards the present. But what I want us to think about is how Americans have fought to make that claim, all men are created equal, an actuality, and often succeeded and failed. So your course objectives here, at its most basic, students are able to properly analyze primary sources. So we're looking at documents that were written at the time that we're studying. And you want to be able to decipher those, put them in the context, interpret them on their own terms, right? What are they saying? How do they see themselves? And then we can also analyze them and place evaluations on them as well. Beyond that, I want, and this is important, I put this in italics, we want to be able to learn to think, speak, and write critically about the major events and historical events of American history. So I want us to be able to think critically. I want us to be able to talk with each other, right? To communicate to our peers. And I want us to be able to write, right? So you're going to have a couple of writing assignments in here, and we want to be able to internalize information and then communicate them in various forms cogently to our peers, right? So we're looking at these learning outcomes. Basically what we want upon the completion of this course is to be able to decipher the major eras of American history. So if you come out of here and someone says, what is the Progressive Era? What is Reconstruction? What is the Jacksonian Era? What is the Reagan Revolution? What is the Cold War? Like, you will be able to answer things like that. I want us to be able to, like I mentioned before, to analyze primary and secondary sources. So things that are written at the time that we're studying, and also things that are written about the time that we're studying, right? Those secondary sources, and we'll talk about the difference in that. I want us to have an adequate understanding of the diversity of experience among American citizens throughout the history. And I want us to be able to think about these major political, religious, cultural, legal events, and these debates that have defined the nation. So some really good examples of this would be like, what was the cause of the Civil War? What was the Civil War about, right? And there's been a lot of disagreement about that over the past century and a half. Another really clear example is this a Christian nation? That's another central thematic argument that people that have different opposing sides. And what I want us to do is to analyze the arguments both for and against that claim. Doing such, I want us to be able to analyze the evolution of American history, and I want us to understand the nuance and complication of it. So you'll notice that there is no textbook for this course. All of your readings are either primary or secondary source. They're going to be linked every week. You'll be able to see everything you have in order that week under that course content on the right. Right? So if you go under course content, you're going to be able to see everything. You'll notice that there is no textbook. This is a core impacts course, so this is focusing on the citizenship area of the core impacts, part of the core curriculum. And like the idea of classical education is this will help us become better citizens. How do you prepare for your responsibilities as an engaged citizen? How do you have these learning outcomes that will demonstrate cogency or your ability to talk and think about United States history, Georgia history, the Constitution, some major central themes like that. When we come out of here, we want to be able to have critical thinking, intercultural competence, and the ability to think and internalize information, and then to argue and persuade people based on historical knowledge. Policy on academic honesty. The use of AI is not permitted in this course. I am not anti-AI. I use AI myself, but this is not the place for it. There are 3 writing assignments in here. They are 1 pages a piece. It's very short, it's very succinct, it's very simple. Purpose of that is for you to be able to do that writing assignment completely unassisted. I will structure that assignment so that I'm asking you specifically about a primary source, and you are not to use AI to do that. There are ways in which work can be analyzed to see if AI has been used. If I suspect AI and I use those tools, then we will have to have a conversation. I would just ask that you don't put me in that situation. It doesn't serve anyone. The writing component of this course is very small. It's not difficult. You will write 3 pages of text, so it's not a writing intensive course. So I would just ask that everyone please do not put me in the position to turn in someone for cheating, because I have no desire to do that. Accommodations. If you have an accommodation for a disability for any reason, please email me. There's official channels that you have to go through so I get the institutional check. This person has the need or fulfills the documentation or whatever it is they require of you. So I would just ask that you click that. If you have an accommodation, I'll be happy to accommodate anything that is needed, as long as everyone goes through the proper channels. Now here's probably what you were most interested in, your assignments. So primary source analysis make up 30% of your grade in here. 3 times throughout the semester, we are in here for a very quick, short 7 weeks. And so 3 times throughout that period, you will be asked to write a 1-page analysis. And I will give you an example. I will post an example of an analysis. There are a couple things that are really important. If you do this work and you try, and it's clear to me that you are reading the text that you're asked to read and you are following the directions here, you will probably do well on this. What gets people in trouble here is they don't follow the directions. So a couple of things that I'm really a stickler about is I want these to be 1 page. I want them to be Times New Roman font. I want them to be double spaced with 1-inch margins. I have to do that. It's not because I'm a stickler about formatting. It's because everyone needs to be able to do the same assignment. Requirements need to be the same. If I don't say that, then somebody will do half a page in Courier New 14-point font, and somebody else will do, something very different, and then it's not equitable. I need a standard, and so in order to do that, I just ask that 1 page, double spaced, Times New Roman font. The second really important thing is a lot of you come from high school and you think of that you have to write this your name, my name, the date, like 4 lines of information before you even start your paper. That header, that MLA header, heading, header, however you say it, I don't want that. All that does is take up 1/4 of the page, and then you're writing 3/4 of a page and not a full page. And so the formatting stipulations, 12-point, Times New Roman font, 1-inch margins, 12, but also no header. You turn this in through iCollege, it's already attached to your name. I see your name before I see your paper, so I don't need to see your name, my name, the date, all this information that I already know. We'll talk about the analysis as we go, but if you see essentially what this is think of it as maybe 2 big paragraphs. One is essentially a summary of the argument that the text is making. You're going to tell me in your own words, without quotes. This is another big thing. Do not quote. I see what you're reading and where you're pulling from. So I want you to put it in your own words. Tell me what the person is, or who the person is, what they're arguing, and then I want you to tie it back to the information in class, the context, right? So we will be, when we go through this will be clear, because we'll have a video that you'll watch, and then you'll have a reading, or maybe you'll have a reading and then a video. Either way, however it's set up that week, it will be very clear that if you are reading this reading, you need to tie it back into what that video, or a series of videos, it might be 2 or 3 videos, tie it back into the material, make it make sense. Why is this person talking about what they're talking about? Why are they arguing? Like, what are they arguing? Who are they and what are they arguing is the first half. The second half is why does this matter, right? So, and like I said, I'll give you an example of this so you'll understand it. All right, you will have 2 quizzes every week. So the way this course is structured is there's essentially each of the 7 weeks has 2 parts. So you have part 1 and part 2. Like week 1 we'll have 1-1, then 1-2. Week 2, 2-1, 2-2. Week 3, 3-1, 3-2, and on down to 7. Each week you'll do half of the content, and there'll be a quiz. And then you'll do the other half, and you'll do another quiz. You don't have to finish, what you'll see this is you don't have to finish those quizzes until the week is over. I would highly recommend you to, as you go through the first half, do the first quiz. Go through the second half, do the second quiz. I think that is much better, because then you don't have to go back and remember the whole week, right? We're breaking this up so we can just move through the content. If you wait and do it, you're welcome to do that if you think about things that way and that's the way you want to do it. But each one of those quizzes have to be done by the Sunday of that week, right? So by the very end of the weekend each week, which we'll see as we go forward. Extra credit, I give extra credit. I give 1 extra credit assignment. It's 1 to 5 points, so it's up to half a writing assignment, or it's a whole quiz grade. You have to go to a public history exhibit or a museum is essentially what I'm asking you to go to. You will go through the exhibit. You will have proof that you went, so you'll take a photo of your ticket stub that has a date from this summer, right? So it's not something, if you did it, last semester or a year ago or whatever, it has to be current during this 7-week period. And then you will write a 2-page, essentially, analysis. So it's twice the length of a writing analysis, but it's more experiential. And what I want you to do is I want you to walk me through that exhibit. Explain to me what you saw, what was happening, what was depicted, what was argued, what did it show you. And then for that second page, I want you to tie it back to the content in class. So very similar to the writing analysis, but the only difference is it's more based off of your personal experience as opposed to a primary source that we're reading, and it is a little bit longer because of that. And I'll go into that a little bit further if I need to as the semester moves on. So course schedule real quick, you can see that the assessments are in red. Every time something is due, it's going to be in red. You'll also see this on your course calendar. So you can see that this course essentially begins with the Age of Discovery, or Christopher Columbus, and we're gonna have a discussion about Columbus's reputation and the arguments over his legacy and his legitimacy, or the legacy of the Spanish Empire that came after him. Basically, we'll set that in the context of how do we think about Western civilization? How do we think about colonization or colonialism? So that is the larger context there. So you're going to have 2 videos this first week that are going to kind of set the pace. And I want you to see that these are very different videos. And so I want you to think about this in terms of the ongoing debate about the meaning of history. And then we'll actually read an excerpt from Christopher Columbus's journal, and then a detractor, someone who is criticizing Spanish colonization from within. Moving through the second week, or the second part of week 1, we'll talk about English colonization. So we'll talk about Jamestown and the Puritans, and what does it mean? What do those mean? We'll think about that context of, Pocahontas and Thanksgiving, and what is the larger historical context of that. Notice that by week 1, you're supposed to do quiz 1-1 and quiz 1-2 by June 15th at 11:59 p.m. So, before that end of that Sunday, you will have both of those quizzes done. Now, you can do them all at 11 o'clock on that Sunday. You can space them out. This is the benefit of an asynchronous class, is you can do them on your own time, right? They just have to be done by the end of that Sunday. Week 2, we're going to talk about the Enlightenment. We're going to talk about the role of religion in early colonial society, and then we'll talk about the American Revolution, right? So we'll lead up to the birth of the United States. The second half of that week, we're going to talk about the search for democracy. And so we're going to really kind of struggle with what was the vision of the Founding Fathers, or really visions. One of the arguments of this course is that there was no single vision of the Founding Fathers, and whenever somebody tells you that, they're trying to use that appeal to power to get you to believe in their point, whatever it may be. By week 2, at the end, by June 22nd at 11:59, you will complete 3 things here, right? So you're going to have, by the end of that week, you'll do quiz 2-1 and 2-2, and then you will do your first reading analysis, which is due June 22nd at 11:59 at the end of the second week. And I'll post announcements about this, and we'll talk about it. You'll have an example, so I don't want you to get too worried about that yet. What is important here is that that content is over. So for these reading analysis, you can do any of the primary source readings that are assigned. And if you look on the syllabus, we're going to have 2 primary sources, sometimes more, but it's usually 2 for each section. So that's roughly 4 a week, give or take. What that means is when we're doing week 1-1, you're going to have, Columbus's journal and Bartolome de las Casas. If you look at on the syllabus, if you look at week 1-2, you have Rose Davis and you have John Winthrop, City on the Hill, right? Each one, and these are hyperlinked. I'll put these in the content so you can see the readings on the side. and they're hyperlinked in the syllabus. So if you're ever like, what am I supposed to be reading? Then you can go back to the syllabus and you literally can just click on it and it will take you to that reading, right? I want to make this very accessible. So all of the readings, remember, anytime if you're confused about what you should be reading, just go to the syllabus, look at what week it is, and then click that button and it'll take you straight to it. What you're going to do for that reading analysis, number one, is any of the readings from any of those, week 1.2, week 2.1, week 2.2, you're going to pick one that you find interesting and you're going to write one of those reading analyses about it. So what does it argue? Who is the person? Why does it matter based on the material that we've covered? That is going to be your reading analysis number one, due June 22nd at 11:59. So that week 2, remember you got 2 quizzes and a reading analysis due by the end of the 2nd week. And then as we begin to move through the 3rd week, you will have just 2 quizzes. So we'll talk about the Second Great Awakening. We'll talk about the market revolution. We'll talk about these changes in the early United States. And then very quickly in the second half of the 3rd week, we'll begin to move towards the Civil War. We'll talk about what that means and what the Civil War is, what is Reconstruction, what was the role of slavery, what is the argument over that. We'll talk about that more in depth. And into week 4, we'll be moving towards the end of the 19th century and into the 20th century, into the 1900s. You will have, at the end of week 4, it will be like week 2. Well, you'll have 2 quizzes, right? And then you'll have a reading analysis. So 2 quizzes and then a 1-page reading analysis. And for that second reading analysis, you can do any of the readings all the way back to the first reading analysis. So that means the reading analysis for 2 can only be over weeks 3 and 4. You can't go back and do Christopher Columbus from the first week. You have to do it after that first reading analysis. So, and I'll make that clear in the announcements. Week 5, much like week 3, you're just going to have the quizzes. So you're going to do week 5.1, take a short quiz, do 5.2, take a short quiz, and that's it for that week. Week 6, do 6.1. We begin to talk about the 1960s. You can see the readings here, MLK and Malcolm X. And then in 6.2, we're going to talk about other movements that come out of the 60s. We'll talk about feminism, the arguments over what the Democratic Party should do, Gay Liberation Front. We'll see radical protesters like the Weather Underground, the National Organization of Women. We talk about feminism, all of these other liberation movements that begin to look at the civil rights movement and mimic them. There you'll have another quiz over just each one of those sections. So 2 weeks, it's only quizzes. You only have quizzes over the content. You'll just go through the content on the side, and that's it. Week 7, we begin to talk about the counter-revolutions and the rise of modern conservatism, which will round out the end of the class, right? And so, again, on that week, you will have 2 quizzes. You'll do the first half of week 7, 7.1, take a short quiz, 7.2, take a short quiz. Then your last assignment will be that final 3rd reading analysis. It's a 1-page reading analysis, and it's going to be due on August 1st. So you have another extra couple days after that to get that last reading analysis in. It's just a 1-page reading analysis. You get that in and you're done. These quizzes are not going to be extensive. They're 10 multiple choice questions. So if you do, just go through the content, take notes on the videos, read the readings, take a couple notes. They're open notes. You can have everything in front of you, and you're just going to have 10 multiple choice questions. So it's 20 multiple choice questions each week. You got 2 quizzes, and so you'll go through all of the content for, say, week 1.1. You're going to take a 10-question multiple choice quiz, go through the content of 1.2, take a 10 multiple choice quiz, and it's going to be that way for all of the 7 weeks. So it's 14 quizzes in all. Each quiz is 10 questions, and they're 5 points. So each question is half a point. So I do this, we have so many quizzes and we space them out like this. So if you don't do well on one of them, then it's not going to kill you, right? You have many more to make up, and you have the extra credit. So there's really no reason why, if you keep up with the content, you should be able to do pretty well. So another really important thing, I'm going to communicate probably twice a week through the announcements page. So it's very important that you're logging in and you're going through, you're looking at the material and you're looking at the announcements. So I will communicate through the announcements. You don't just go in and look at the content. Every week at the beginning of the week and midweek, you need to be logging in and looking at that announcements page, because that's why I'm going to talk about the content. If I have a lot of email questions, I'll address things in the announcements page. It's very important that you update and keep to current with that announcements page. I look very forward to working with you, from hearing from you. Reach out to email, comments, anything. I'm open for communication. I'm excited about this. I've been teaching American history for a number of years, and every semester it's just as exciting as the last. And so I'm very interested to see the work that I see from you all this semester.